Welcome to All Pro Football Data. My name is Jim Coburn, and today's episode we're talking about 2024 NFL Outlook on Kansas City Chiefs rookie wide receiver Xavier Worthy based on data. So, what we're going to do in this video, we're going to look at his pre draft profile, team analysis, schedule analysis, and his week by week matchups to see what the obstacles and opportunities await him in 2024. So, stay tuned to the end of the video where I reveal the overall outlook for him, but let's get right to the data with him. So first off, the setup. The setup for this is simply this. Xavier Worthy was drafted by the Chiefs at pick 28 in this year's draft. The typical expectation, based on approximate value metrics, which you can find at Pro Football Reference, of a wide receiver selected at pick 6 since the 1969 NFL draft class is 89.19 out of 100. So the overall expectation for a player selected at pick 28 is that they become a NFL player that's 89% better than the vast majority of NFL players. So that's essentially what you're looking for. That's like the benchmark for a player selected there. But what makes Worthy unique is that he has a high pre-draft profile data score on top of, I would say, an elite landing spot due to the presence of Patrick Mahomes. But before we get into those details, let's check out his pre-draft profile. So starting with offensive market share scores. Uh, Xavier Worthy, in terms of his market share production, has been fantastic. 89 percentile in terms of his receiving market share, 80 percentile in terms of total offensive market share, and then 84 percentile in terms of his touchdown market share. All those numbers pretty much hit within the starter averages, the Pro Bowl averages, and even the All Pro averages of the position, which is a big positive for him in terms of future projection. Then when you get to efficiency scores, he also has been very efficient as well in terms of his yards per reception and his touchdowns per touch. Both of those areas have been well for him in terms of his efficiency. Then when you get to athleticism traits for him, athletically speaking, he had an 83 percentile speed score, which again is speed for his size. Yes, he would be considered the fastest NFL wide receiver or NFL player in general right now based on his 40-yard dash, but for his size, because he is a little lighter, he is 83 percentile in terms of his speed score with a 34.82 percentile explosion score, which takes into account the vertical and the broad jump. So he's very fast, but not the most explosive player in terms of his lower body strength. Then when you get to adjusted production traits, adjusted production takes a look at his production for his level of competition, for the team that he's on, and of course his age. And based on his adjusted production traits, fantastic age score, fantastic MSA rating, and fantastic pass score of 99.38 out of 100. So he has great production, good athleticism traits, and has the production adjusted for his level of competition of an elite wide receiver prospect. And you got him at pick 28. That's pretty fantastic. That's a good number for him to hit. Now, what makes Xavier Worthy a prize fantasy wide receiver is that the overall EAV or data profile for Worthy was 97.03 out of 100. Since 1969, wide receivers with a 95 or higher data score taken in the top 20 to 32 picks of the NFL draft are as follows: Percy Harvin Jr., Thomas Lewis, Brandon Ayuk, Eddie Hinton, Brashard Perryman, DeAndre Hopkins, Ron Shanklin, Michael Jenkins, Darnay Scott, and Isaac Bruce. That's a pretty decent list to be on. Yes, there are some wide receivers in there that are not the most fantastic or had the best careers, but for the most part, there are some wide receivers in there that you can go, yeah, they were pretty darn good, and some of them even you would even consider to be future Hall of Famers. So I would say that's a good list to be on. Now, with that list of wide receivers that I was able to compile and additional wide receiver information, we can formulate year one potential based on the current roster. So before we get to that projection, let's start with what type of offense Worthy has landed in for year one. So taking a look at the Chiefs analysis. So we're going to take a look at the team that he landed on because the type of team that a wide receiver lands on potentially could impact their NFL projection. I mean, that's what everybody says every single year, that a wide receiver lands on a team that has a great quarterback. So we're going to take a look at that. We're going to put it to the test, as they say. So the Chiefs ended 2023 with an average offense. They ranked 45.55 out of 100 in terms of their offensive single ranking score, which is a score formulated by Pro Football Reference. And Mahomes had a QBR percentile score of 62.53 out of 100 in 2023. With this information, the Chiefs' offense has not been as explosive as it once was in the past, but that could change with the addition of Xavier Worthy. So taking a look at Patrick Mahomes in terms of his production, because we have to get some sense in this, because I know some Chiefs fans are going to look at this data and go, "What the heck, man? Why is the offense below average in terms of offensive single ranking? Why is Mahomes not have a 90 plus percentile QBR?" And the reason why is because in the past he has had that, but there has been some fluctuations in the offense, guys. I mean, when you look at 2023, for example, the offense was not where it's been in the past. 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2022 were all the years where the Chiefs' offense was just ramped up to 11 in terms of production, in terms of yards per attempt, QBR, all that kind of stuff. And then 2023, you had a drop off. Now there was some injuries to Travis Kelce, but the fact of the matter is the wide receiver talent there is just kind of, yeah, they need more talent there. They need it, and that's one of the reasons why Worthy was taken. But the other thing, which I think a lot of people might be overlooking, and some people even are just ignorant of this fact, which is a lot of people have said that Worthy is not a great deep ball wide receiver or a vertical stretching wide receiver. He ran really fast, but he's not really that. I mean, he's not really that, is what a lot of people have said. They've said, well, he doesn't really do much down the field. He's fast, but he's not a deep threat. But the reality is when you look at his college football situational statistics, that's not the case, guys. Much of that is hindsight bias, recency bias, because the fact of the matter is Xavier Worthy in 2021, based on his college football statistics from 2009 until 2023, showed that he was in the 80 percentile in terms of percentage of receptions that led to 15 plus yard plays. And then in 2021, also, his 25-yard plus plays, in terms of market share of those plays, also was in the 91 percentile in terms of that particular year. And then when you go to 2022 and 2023, the 15-yard plays dropped, the 25-yard plays dropped, and then 2023 was the same result. Is this because Xavier Worthy became a really great deep threat and then he just wasn't a deep threat anymore? Hmm? Or is it because of change of a quarterback? Because Xavier Worthy had Casey Thompson in 2021 throwing him the football, and then in 2022 and 2023 he had Quinn Ewers throwing him the football. So is it Xavier Worthy's issue that he wasn't getting these 15, 25-yard plays down the football field? Or was it a quarterback change? I'll let you decide. But the fact of the matter is, even though Xavier Worthy has not been a consistent deep threat at the college football level, which I'll grant you that, he has shown he can do it. And he did it as a freshman in college at Texas. So despite the concerns, again, that some people have, that, well, he's not going to be a deep threat. He wasn't a deep threat in college. Go back to 2021. Go back there, because he was a very consistent and prolific deep threat back then. And in this Chiefs offense, with the needs that they have at the wide receiver position, to stretch the football field, to increase their yards per attempt, increase the big plays, Worthy could be the key to that. Don't forget that. Don't forget that, because he could be the key that unlocks this Chiefs offense in 2024, based on the data that I'm showing you right here. So next up, let's get to the parameters here. So now we're going to look at Xavier Worthy compared to every other wide receiver that tested like him, taken between picks 20 to 32. Taking a look at this data here for him, these are all the wide receivers that kind of tested like him. So this is the big test. Okay, this is what we're testing. Does the QBR of the incumbent quarterback affect the overall wide receiver of the rookie wide receiver? Is that the case? Is that not the case? This is what we're checking. And also the overall offensive strength. And based on data, there is no correlation there. So when you take a look at the QBR of wide receivers in the based on the parameters I just showed you, if they have a great quarterback there, there's not much of a correlation there. So based on correlation coefficients, there is not much of a correlation there at all. Typically with correlation coefficients, you want to see a correlation between probably about 0.35 and up. You know, zero point 0.4, zero point 0.5 is a great correlation coefficient. 0.6 is even better. 0.7, 0.8, you're cooking with gas then. So based on the correlation coefficients for NFL QBR versus wide receiver market share, there is no significant correlation between that based on year one, year two, and year three. So regardless of the quarterback they have, if they have a great quarterback there and they have a great data score and they end up on that team, there's no correlation there. There's no relationship between those two events. So you can't just say that because Xavier Worthy ended up on the Chiefs that he's going to have this top 10 season. It's not to say that it could not happen. It's just you can't make that argument because the data doesn't say that that is the reality. There's other variables involved with wide receiver breakouts, which a lot of that times just deals with things that I'm not even measuring yet, than just the quarterback they have throwing them the football and the team that they land on. Okay, there's other variables at foot other than that that have a significant impact on that. So that's something that I need more research into. But the same thing is also the case for offensive team strength. So regardless of the team that they ended up on, and the fact that they had a really great data score and they were taken in the first round, there is no correlation between the team that they landed on and their production as a year one wide receiver. There's no correlation there. There's no correlation of that. So that's just something I want to really throw out there to you guys that you can't make the argument that because he landed on the Chiefs offense that he's just going to have this phenomenal rookie season. Could he have a great rookie season? Absolutely. But you can't state that he's going to have it just because he's on the Chiefs. Because there's a lot of other factors, there's a lot of other variables involved that we may not even be discussing right now that can play into that. So that's just another thing to kind of get your mind rolling a bit, okay, in terms of projection. Now, what this overall means is that whether Worthy succeeds in 2024 or not, Patrick Mahomes will not be the overriding force behind it. It's really just going to come down to, is Xavier Worthy going to translate at the NFL level? That's it. You know, if Xavier Worthy is as good of a wide receiver as we all think he is, or that we hope he is, it doesn't matter who's throwing him the football. He's going to be productive. You know, you look at guys like Andre Johnson, you look at guys like Calvin Johnson, you look at all these other really great wide receivers in the past. And again, it doesn't matter what type of quarterback they had; they're going to be productive, regardless of where you put them. They're going to be productive because they have traits and skills that we are not even really comprehending yet that affected those things. Okay, first off, next up, you know, as much of that also includes wide receivers' ability to NFL, to adapt to the NFL environment and produce. So one last part before we get to the next part of this is we're going to take a look at percentile data wide receivers picked from 20 to 32 versus average NFL market share. So essentially what we're doing is we're going to take a look at all the wide receivers that I based the parameters on in that previous slide, and we're going to look at what the average NFL market share was in. You know, what's expected? What's the average expectation for a wide receiver based on all the overall data that Xavier Worthy has and his draft slot. And based on this information, the average NFL market share is 62 percentile, which is really not that great if you think about it. I mean, that's only 60% better than most NFL wide receivers. The second year of that player, you know, the sophomore season, is 68 percentile, 68.92, and then the third year is 70.62. So typically, year one wide receivers, based on the prior parameters, only average 62 percentile, and then there's usually about a 6 to 8 percentile jump in years 2 to 3. We would all hope for Worthy to have a Justin Jefferson or Randy Moss like rookie season, but that is not always the case for rookie wide receivers. So just remember that, guys. You know that there is a bit of, I would say, gambling when it comes to wide receiver projection that you kind of have to make your best bets on. So just keep that in mind in terms of evaluating him. Now, in terms of the Kansas City Chiefs offense, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. Let's get into the actual Chiefs offense and what they have. And what they have is a lot of great talent here. Patrick Mahomes, of course, is by far the best quarterback in the NFL. You look at Isaiah Pacheco, who didn't have the best data score, but he has been very productive and has had a good efficiency score as well for him. So his overall data score coming out of college wasn't the best, but he was able to end up on the Chiefs and produce well for the situation that he's in. Now, Worthy has a great data score as well, if not the best data score on offense in terms of skill position players. But he probably, based on my expectations in terms of projecting him, might end up being sort of an 88 percentile wide receiver in year one. I mean, that remains to be seen, of course, but that's just my general projection based on his overall data. They also have Marquise Brown, who has 96 percentile in terms of his NFL production, which is decent. Rashee Rice also has 97 percentile. We're going to get into him a little bit more because of the suspension stuff, but he definitely is also a pretty solid wide receiver from last year. Travis Kelce, of course, is coming back. He's to be 35 years old, though, so there's a little bit of concern about age, but he should still probably produce the way he's been producing, especially at the tight end position. And then when you look at the offensive line, all-star potential there. Every position is locked in terms of their production and data, with the exception of Wanya Morris, who his NFL production hasn't been the best, but a lot of that has just been because of not getting that many starts in his career up to this point. So that's the Chiefs' offense. It's pretty fantastic. When you look at the dark green areas, that's what you want to see. So they have an all-star offense that Xavier Worthy is going to end up in, which could be fruitful for him in 2024. Now, when you get to the team-based data ranks, so the team-based data ranks takes into account the pre-draft data scores. It takes into account the age and the depth of the roster. So this isn't an indictment on Pacheco, but his data on top of the depth that they have at the running back position is what makes the Chiefs running back spot kind of the weakest in terms of data. But the quarterback position, the wide receiver position, the tight end position, the offensive line are all great areas to mention. And based on all this data, the Chiefs easily have a top two offense, if not better offense, for 2024 based on this data. And Xavier Worthy is going to be in this, which is going to be another positive for why there might be a really fantastic breakout rookie season for him based on the data. Now, when you get to all this other stuff, you get to the positives. So, what are the positives for Worthy? What are some of the things, I got a little bit negative, again, with the average wide receiver market share stuff, but what are some of the positives for Worthy in year one? And I think some of the positives comes down with offensive threats that he has there already. So, as I mentioned before, Travis Kelce, Marquise Brown, Rashee Rice, are decent support pieces for Worthy. Rice may miss a significant amount of games in 2024 due to his off the field issues, but that could give the opportunity for Worthy to get solid development time with Mahomes in terms of actual NFL games. So even though Rice is not really going to be there to kind of take some pressure off of Worthy and the rest of the offense because of that suspension, it still might help Worthy to not have to fight Rice for targets and looks from Mahomes in that 8-game span to really develop chemistry with him in actual NFL games. I think that's a big positive here of the Rice suspension. So it's never great to have a guy miss half of the season, which again hasn't been confirmed yet, but that's just what the rumors have been. But it's still decent. It's still good for him to kind of get that rapport there. So that's a big positive for him. So if Worthy's game translates to the Chiefs' scheme well, he could be in for a solid rookie campaign. Really, truly fantastic rookie campaign. Now, in terms of the schedule for the Chiefs, so now we're getting into the actual schedule for them because we're diving deep, guys. We're going in deep in this outlook. So, based on the Chiefs' offense, so if you look at this chart here, it has the offensive and defensive ranks for the Chiefs for the first part, and then the second part has the offense and defensive ranks for the opposing team, and then offense slash defense is the difference between the offense and the defense that they're going to face. Defense slash offense takes a look at the Chiefs' defense versus the opposing offense, and then the overall difference is the overall offense and defensive difference to kind of see what advantages they have this year on offense. And for the most part, the Chiefs team is going to have an advantage in every single game except for the Buffalo Bills in terms of their overall team strength, which is fantastic. And on top of that, when you look at the offensive games here, you look at the Bengals, the Falcons, the Chargers, the Raiders, the Broncos, all these other teams down here. Those are teams where they have a 20 plus advantage in terms of their overall offensive strength versus the defense that they're going to face. So this is a great season for them in terms of, if you're talking about toughness of the schedule, this is a great season for them. Then, of course, we get to week one for the Kansas City Chiefs. For this one, they're going to face the Baltimore Ravens, and this is an interesting rematch. Of course, in the AFC Championship game, the Chiefs dominated them on defense, made them look silly at times, but this is still a very good secondary. But there is one weakness, and that's the nickel cornerback in Ardarius Washington for them. So this is going to be an interesting test for them, but the biggest issues I see in the Ravens defense based on data is that their front four has some issues in terms of generating pass rush for them. So that's going to be a little bit of a concern. They don't have a lot of really good pass rushers here. And then the secondary is very good, but the secondary can only hold up so long. So because of that, I think this could be a game where there's a lot of advantages for them in this game. So I like this game for Xavier Worthy. I think this might be a great statement game, even though the secondary has a lot of really good players here. I think there are some advantages for them overall. Then, of course, you get to the Cincinnati Bengals, another team where the secondary is 80 percentile area in terms of them, not really in the 90 percentile. And especially when you get to the front seven as well, it's a little scattershot in terms of their overall defense. So this is another game where I think the Chiefs will have a lot of advantages in terms of their offense in terms of this. Then of course we get to the Atlanta Falcons where AJ Terrell has been decent, Jesse Bates has been decent, but look at the cornerbacks here. Look at Mike Hughes, look at Clark Phillips, look at DeMarco Hellmans. At strong safety. These are guys that I think could be had. So this is definitely another team that I think there are some advantages here that the Chiefs can exploit with Xavier Worthy. Then, of course, you get to the Chargers. Their secondary is better than their front seven, but the interior defensive line for the Chargers is really not there. It's a really big weak spot for them. I think that's going to affect their overall ability to create pressure, which again is going to open up opportunities for Xavier Worthy. So this is another game where I think the Chiefs will have an advantage on offense that Worthy could profit from. Then, of course, you get to the Saints. This is a team that actually could have a very good secondary and overall. They're very underrated. The Saints have a very strong defense from a data perspective, but at the same time they're also fairly young, so there could be some advantages there. But this is going to be one of those games where I think there might be a bit of a down game for them, but I think this is pretty solid. And the free safety Jordan Howden could be had. His efficiency from last year was only 46 percentile. His overall data grade is 63 percentile. But Howden is somebody I think they could target in terms of deep throws and could, again, a big game for Xavier Worthy definitely is possible here. Then, of course, you get to the San Francisco 49ers, the rematch, if you will. Same sort of advantages here. The front seven is kind of the biggest thing for them. But the secondary is a little bit weaker, guys. It really is. Renardo Green is a rookie that they're going to be starting here. Travarius Ward, at cornerback, has been pretty solid over the years. But again, it is, they have been able to have success against this team, and I'm excited to see what happens in the Super Bowl rematch here in Week 7. It might be difficult in terms of that, but I think the secondary does have some weaknesses that they could exploit. Then, of course, you get to the Las Vegas Raiders, where again the front seven, it has some hit or miss type prospects here. Tyree Wilson has not really developed into the edge rusher that they expected it to become. He still has time, could have a great season this year, but he hasn't really done that yet. And then when you look at the secondary for the Raiders, it's just all over the place, just a smattering of different prospects that I don't think are really going to translate very well. So this is a game where I think the Chiefs definitely have advantages, and I think Xavier Worthy could eat the Raiders alive in many ways based on his data. Then, of course, you get to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, the Buccaneers have had a fairly solid secondary for the most part, but they do have weaknesses here. The left cornerback position is a weakness based on data. Tyke Smith, who's a rookie that they're going to be starting at nickel cornerback, is also going to be a bit of an issue for them to kind of have cover Xavier Worthy. So there are a lot of advantages in this particular game as well. Now, Antoine Winfield is a great safety, but he's more of a strong safety. When you actually look at his coverage data, I'm not talking about PFF. I'm talking about his general ability to prevent big plays down the football field from a statistical standpoint. He's not really been that guy. So he's a much better guy in terms of making plays closer to the line of scrimmage than he is in the back half. And because of that, I think this is a game where the Chiefs will not be shut down. I think there will be opportunities for them to make plays in this game. Then, of course, we get the Denver Broncos. So Patrick Surtain obviously is a top 5 cornerback in the NFL, but everybody else they have there is not. And because of that, this is going to be a game that I think they could definitely have, take advantage of them in many ways. Now, Xavier Worthy, for the most part, I don't really think Patrick Surtain might be lined up against him, but he does have the speed to stretch this team out. And because of that, I think there are those little pocket opportunities for him to really play. But overall, Broncos defense, not that great. Definitely an area for Xavier Worthy to take advantage. Then we get to week 11 for Xavier Worthy, where they face the Buffalo Bills. Now, the Buffalo Bills are always a tough test, but their secondary is a little meh in many ways. They're going to have a rookie and Cole Bishop starting. They're going to have Rasul Douglas, Christian Benford. There was a lot of shakeups this year in terms of their defense, and because of that, I see this as a game where the Chiefs could have a lot of advantages, especially with Xavier Worthy. So this is a game where, yes, there are going to be some it's going to be a tough game. It always is when you play the Bills, but I think they will have success against this secondary. And the front four is really the biggest thing. If they can protect Patrick Mahomes and not let him get pressured too much, I think there's a lot of advantages here that they could get from this matchup. Then we get to week 12 where they face the Carolina Panthers. Now, the Panthers are a fairly weak overall defensive team. When you look at the secondary there's not a whole lot of positives to really speak on there. And then, of course, the front four is decent. Jadeveon Clowney, Derek Brown are decent, Ashawn Robinson, but once you leave those guys, it's just not a lot of really great stuff to really talk about here. So this is a team where you would hope the best, but I think this is easily a blowout game. I mean, don't let them sneak up on you, but I think this could be a decent game for the Chiefs in Week 12. Then, of course, you get to Week 13, they face the Raiders again. I mean, I've already spoken on the issues they have here. The secondary is not really where it needs to be, and realistically, if you can stop the pass rush from the inside and the outside from Max Crosby, I think you can get them. You can have them. So I think that's the biggest thing that they'll have to do in this game. Then, of course, you get to the Chargers. Similar situation. Interior defensive line not really there, but they have those pass rushers in Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack that can cause some disruptions. But once you get past that, there's a lot of things that can be taken advantage of in this offense. Then, of course, you get to the Cleveland Browns, which is a interesting test for them. I think in many ways, the front seven is solid. The back half, in terms of the secondary, other than Denzel Ward, can be had. So as much as there is a really good pass rush force here, the secondary can be had with guys like Martin Emerson and Greg Newsome and Juan Thornhill and Grant Delpit. All those guys are good, but they haven't really proven to be elite secondary players. And because of that, I think the Chiefs could take advantage of that if they're able to hold up in terms of the pass rush. Then, of course, you get the Houston Texans here. This is going to be an interesting game because, both of these teams are AFC teams. Both of these teams, this might decide who has the top seed in terms of, that coveted top seed, if you will. So, in terms of, getting a bye week and stuff like that. So, this is going to be a game where I'm very excited to see what happens. The pass rush is there for them, but the secondary for them can be had. So, if you're able to keep Patrick Mahomes clean, I think there could be a lot of advantages here for them in terms of Xavier Worthy. So definitely a must-watch game too. Then of course you get to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Great pass rush. Do have some issues with their secondary that could be exploited, but the front seven is phenomenal. But if they hold up well, they should be able to make plays down the football field. And then the last team, of course, is the Denver Broncos again. They have good individual pieces and guys like Patrick Surtain and Jonathan Cooper, but other than that, there's not a lot of to really write home about here, which could be had for them overall. Overall outlook for Xavier Worthy. I think there are many variables to consider with him, but succeeding as a rookie wide receiver is not as easy as it seems. The upside potential for Worthy is a 90 plus percentile share wide receiver on a top 5 passing offense in 2024. But the floor is closer to the 46th percentile range. This is just based on the wide receivers who tested similar to him based on his overall data. Worthy fell into one of the best situations for any wide receiver to fall into due to the presence of Mahomes. I know that's something that's going to be talked about to death this offseason. I know you're probably tired of me telling you that as well. But the fact of the matter is, when you look at the data, regardless of who that quarterback is, it's not really going to have much bearing on his success year one. It's really going to be ultimately up to Worthy to have that success. But if he does, if he really dials in and locks in and proves to be the wide receiver that he was based on data, he could have that season like a Justin Jefferson. He could have that season like a Randy Moss. He really could because he has that elite level athleticism with great production. And I think more than anything else, regardless of how he does as a rookie, I think he's going to have the opportunity to really help this Chiefs offense go to the next level and get back to where it was prior in terms of its plays down the football field, in terms of yards per attempt and adjusted yards per attempt. So I think if anything, Worthy will fill that gap and fill that role really well, and just be able to stretch the football field down and open up things. So that's going to be a big thing for me. So overall, that's Xavier Worthy's outlook. I know it's a long video, but we covered a lot of different topics. If you like videos like this, you want to see more videos like this, please leave a like, subscribe, do all those different kinds of things for the channel. It really helps out the channel a lot for this video. So, share it with as many people as you can possibly care to share it with. Also, check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/jcoburn. If you want to see these videos early, I post these videos early on there for my patrons. So also patron requested videos. So if you have a video that you want me to do, if you go join my Patreon, you can request a video and I can make that video for you. So definitely that. Also, go to my X formerly known as Twitter account at Geometrics, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.